Can you hear me now?
Want to go ahead and call to order the August Fishman Planning and Zoning meeting? Thank you. Call to order the August Fishman Planning and Zoning meeting to order. Everybody is present except Jeffrey Horning. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Tina Brown in the audience. And if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's take a moment of silence for individual prayer and self-reflection. Okay. The first item on the agenda is for the approval of the minutes. Is there any amendments, corrections, deletions? Discussion for the minutes?
Make a motion to approve.
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes approved. Okay, was there anybody registered to speak?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have Rachel Allred has signed up to speak and address the Planning Commission.
Okay, please step forward and state your name and your address.
Hello, my name is Rachel Allred. My address is Houston, but I'm technically unincorporated Jackson County. I live off of McNeil Road, District 5. My concern has been the population increase. 1990 it was like 30,000, 2024 is like it was 30,000, now it's 90,000. So there's been a huge population increase, and I think that it's still an issue today, and I think that we can preserve and create more tourism in the future for preserving our way of life and not let it turn into like Gwinnett County or Hall County, just to kind of slow down things. I reached out to Board of Commissioners. I reached out to the county. They said that they used to have a moratorium in place. They used to have it, but it had expired. So my concern, considering that I'm in unincorporated zoning, normal stuff, my concern is what is, my closest city, Houston, what can we do as public and as council members, what can we do to kind of get Jackson County to put that moratorium back into place? Just kind of get the moratorium back into place so that we can put a cap on the population increase. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item is old business. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. White for ordinance TA 2024-04.
we didn't have anyone else sign up, and so I don't know if you wanna, do you wanna
Oh.
call for anybody else,
Would
even though
anybody
there
else
was
like-
no sign up?
Anyone else like to come and address the commission?
Okay. So then, on, old business, this, as you know, we amended the agenda to bring this item back up. The council had remanded this item back to the planning commission for further study. This was an ordinance that we considered all the way back, I think it was in May or June. And, what this did was, it was intended to, have the zoning administrator monitor different developments, rezonings and so forth, and if there was no activity, put a process in place where if they didn't do anything on the development for 2 years, that the approval would lapse, or it would go through a process where the zoning would be, in essence, revert back to its original zoning. So we wrote this, the city council had requested it, we wrote it, we had discussions with the city attorney about it, and he was not all that much in favor of it, and as a result, we had recommended that the council withdraw it. And, the council did not withdraw it, they sent it back here to the planning commission. And since your meeting was coming up and they recently did this, we decided to go ahead and get it back on your agenda for consideration. So at this time, we can talk some more about it, but I also wanted to update the commission because I have done some additional research today. I was hoping that, I wasn't gonna be prepared to tell you exactly what I think you should do at this meeting, and we may be sort of floundering around a little bit since we haven't had time and you don't have any guidance on what to do, but, I was looking at, I can respond to some of the concerns that the city attorney had. One of the questions he had was, has anyone else done something of the sort? And I said, well, I don't think so. But there are other cities, and I came across other cities and counties that have done reversion of zoning before based on inactivity. The city of Morrow, the city of Augusta, Clayton County, Henry County, Pike County, city of Woodstock, city of Brunswick, city of Hiram. And out of those, I was able to find 3 of the ordinances, and I have looked at them. And I think, to make a long story short, I think that we should discuss it some, but that I think I'd like the commission to give me, I guess, the liberty to try and respond to the city attorney's problems with it, issues, and bring something back to the council. But if that's being assuming too much, then we can talk a little more about it. But I did make some notes about what the ordinance that I wrote said was that the zoning administrator would monitor all development, and if we got to the point where a project had gone for 2 years without any substantial activity, then there would be a process where we would notify the applicant and say, hey, we're going to consider starting a process where we move your zoning back to the original. And so it would start a process, and then you could still decide, the council, that the applicant could show up and say, no, I've done this and that, and therefore don't try and do that. Or they could just say, we don't want you to do that, and then council could say, no, we're not going to do that, even though it's been 2 years. So that was one of the concerns that the city attorney had. He was also concerned about vagueness, about making decisions about what constitutes a lack of progress toward the development. And so after looking at it and spending maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours on it, I think that I can come up with something that is closer to what the city attorney would accept by way of legal aspects to it, and basically not apply it to everything, but put in there not apply to everything that's already gone ahead, but in the future, like right in here, that the city may impose a time limit on any kind of project, and then if there is a time limit imposed, then the safeguard would be that they could ask for an extension, and if they've done some things, if they're able to show that, that they've made progress toward that new zoning, then they would be allowed to continue it if they showed information of that sort. And then if not, then you could go through the process of trying to revert it back, yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
Was it, was there heartburn with the 2 years, or was it with the process of that this could happen, that it could?
Yeah, some of the heartburn was with the 2 years. The idea was that he indicated, well, you've got a one-size-fits-all of, and some projects may be complex and they need 3 years, and other projects might not.
What if
need
we
that
did
much.
something in the application process, that part of it was that the person making the application for the zoning change would have to put in a time frame when they would start the project?
Yeah.
Put it on them. And if somebody comes back and says, well, it's gonna be 5 years, all right, well, why is it 5 years? And use that as a process, rather than us saying, have them put it forward. It's just a thought.
So,
Yeah, it's good.
if I can be recognized, so I think we all want to do the right thing, but I think if we start with what our intent is, and for me, what I think the intent is, and I can remember some of these discussions in previous city councils, was we didn't want what happened to the car wash, approved a year and a half ago, still nothing. The gas station approved a year and a half ago, still nothing. I think the intent, at least from my point of view, is we want to hold the developers accountable. We want them to move forward with what they've asked us. We've made some changes. So, and I think we need to, when an applicant comes to us and says, hey, I want to build 50 homes, I think we should have a high-level milestone type schedule attached to that, saying, here's where I'm going to turn the first shovelful of dirt. Here's where I'm going to pay the city all its tap fees, because that's important. We want to collect the tap fees up front. And at the end of whatever, year one, I'm going to have 10 homes built, year two, 20 homes built. But I think the intent when this was initially discussed over several months was not so much to give an absolute deadline to saying, hey, we're going to revert back after 2 years. I think the intent was, if you haven't made progress after 2 years, you need to come back and tell us. And if you don't, we're going to revert back then. But it wasn't if you didn't progress or do something to you. You got to keep us informed, and we want to know what happens. So I think that's where we wanted to go, and that's a long story, but I think things
No,
will go.
I would agree with that. I mean, 2 years is a long time. If it's not long enough, it's a place to start. So when someone comes with a project that this is your goal, doesn't mean you have to absolutely, it's an absolute deadline, but keep us informed. Where are you? Is it gonna take a little longer? Whatever, but 2 years is a good number to start with, my opinion.
Yeah. And if I could just tag on one more thing, because I was thinking about this yesterday and today, is the other thing that I'd like that 2 years to do is also help prevent land speculation. I would not like somebody to come in here and say, I want to rezone from agricultural to residential, and then the city council approves it, and the next day the guy puts the land on the market. My thought would be that, and I don't know how we can do this, and Abe will have to tell us, if you come to us and say you want to rezone from agricultural to commercial, you can't sell that property without coming back to us within 2 years. I mean, because what happens is, and I'll take Almont Farms for an example, that property changed developer 3 times. So the 52 homes that were planned there 3 years ago have now turned into 52 rentals, and nobody had any say. The whole city was caught off guard, and I want to prevent that kind of stuff from happening.
Yeah.
And I don't want to tie the developer's hands. I'm not anti-developer because they provide a service to the community and they help us economically. But they are responsible to the city, we are responsible to the citizens, and we want to make sure they do the right thing and that nobody's coming in here for land speculation and turning land over and we don't know what's going to happen. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah.
So I come from a medical industry background. And you know what a malpractice attorney's worst thing he can hear from his surgeon defendant? I don't have a standard operating procedure. I just fly by the seat of my pants. Whoever shows up, if I feel like doing the procedure this way today, I do it that way, do it this way. The best way to defend yourself against lawsuits, in my experience, is to be consistent with a documented written plan and sticking to that for every person that walks up. And I just spent an hour and a half this morning with a pit of snakes, all developers, 70 of them, not happy with the Jackson County Water and Sewer Authority raising their tap fees up to a reasonable amount that recoups their pay. So I think that we need to have one of two things. It should consistently be 2 years, regardless of the size of the development, and the tap fees, impact fees, permit fees should be paid upfront within, say, 12 months. Give them 12 months to do that, because it's happened in this city before. It's happened in every city and every county around this country. Developer comes in, they rezone something, and they get a road paved, and then they go, market conditions have changed, we're bailing on the deal. The city just borrowed $25 million for a wastewater treatment plant expansion, and now they've got $1.3 million in payments to make every year, and no tap fees coming in. The county school system goes, oh, they were going to build 1,000 homes over there. We needed to prepare schools for 750 more kids. They prepare a general obligation bond to build schools for kids, and now there's no kids there. The county, Dr. Jeffrey Dorfman from the University of Georgia, he was the fiscal economic advisor for the state of Georgia under Brian Kemp, 2019-2023, has compiled the data from 150 cost of community service studies in America, 18 of which he did on his own, has clearly stated it's a fallacy for a city or a county to think that building permit fees generate sustainable revenue for a long-term viable city. So we've got to do something as a city that protects our current citizens from increased property taxes, increased water and sewer bills, increased school maintenance and operation budgets, capital general obligation budgets. In the county, most people think what happens in this city doesn't affect the county. According to Dr. Dorfman, every house that's approved in this city costs the county $17,000 toward their capital expenditure budget. We have to build roads. We have to put in red lights. We have to build roundabouts for schools. We have to increase our solid waste management transfer station. So when a developer comes in here and goes, I'm going to build 1,000 houses, and then he never builds them, you've started something that's going to cost county property taxpayers money. So I appreciate the attorney's comments, and I appreciate Dr. White's going out and doing the casework to find where that's happened. But unless there's some case law somewhere that says that what we're trying to prove is patently illegal or against Supreme Court rulings, I think we have to go through with this.
Yeah, okay.
I apologize for the diatribe.
No,
but,
that's fine. Okay. So
somebody's got to say it.
what I'm hearing from you, number one, is that we should amend the code to require a completion schedule. And under that, what I saw in the code, the other ones that were written was commencement, when would they commence, and when would they have substantial progress done. That way, we're not we're not telling them up front that that it has to be done in a certain period of time, but they have the opportunity to say, this is what we're trying to do, based on the scale of the development.
And one more thing they said today at the Jackson County Water and Sewer Authority meeting, the spokesperson for the developer said they would have no problem paying up front the tap fees if they were given 6 months. They could pay so many in 30 days, so many in 60 days, that they had no problem with that.
Okay. And what I saw in one of the codes was, they said, okay, we're gonna amend, our code requires you to specify a completion schedule, commencement, and when substantial progress will be made. And then if you do not if there isn't one, then we plug in that 2 years. And that may sound like it's too fast, but then we also plug in the opportunity to ask for an extension of it. And then if they came in at 18 months and said, you know, we're having trouble getting financing with the bank or something, or whatever it might be, and it sounds like a good reason, then we can hold off on that. And then put some standards in there for how the decision would be made. And I can borrow from some of the other ordinances about what are the criteria for granting an extension to it, on what basis is that the right thing to do, and on what basis is there where we would think that you're not, you know, in other words, get rid of the vagueness about, let's not make it a determination by the zoning administrator, but it's there's some concrete criteria that say you have not made progress. And that's where some of the other things can come in, like paying fees. And I don't know that we can try that and go so far as to say the fees have to be paid by a certain point, and that's one of the triggers. And I do agree with Scott about the you've outlined all the good reasons why we need to do that, and council has we did start doing that some. You know, we had, when these PUDs came in, the big PUDs, we had developers ponying up dollars. I mean, the Rockland Homes they paid $6.3 million. They've all but paid their sewer fees, or when they pay, they will have paid for it all. And if you don't get it, you have the exact really serious problem of the city going in and planning capital improvements, borrowing money, and spending money, and then having no return. We can't afford to do that. So that would lead us into a pretty good argument to make for, you know, some percentage of them being paid, or all of them being paid at a certain point, or at least at minimum that being a criteria on which we decide whether you're gonna be reverted back to another zoning.
I would think that the message back to the city's attorney is what we want to do, and then he find a way to make it enforceable and legal of the action, but to do what we're talking about.
Yeah. And a question that you had asked earlier, and I think we've all implied it, I'm comfortable personally with you speaking with Abe to address this on our behalf. But one other thing, if you could ask him, and I know his initial feelings about this, is I'd like to understand why, if we establish this ordinance, we cannot apply it to property that's been rezoned but not developed yet if we start the clock today. Here is, and I'll take the car wash, for example. You've had a year and a half. Guess what? Here's a letter from the city attorney saying a new clock has started. You have 2 years to fish or cut bait. And I know he's hesitant about doing that, but I would like to know why we can't do that. Because, if all of a sudden we have to put fire sprinklers in buildings because the code changed, we go back and we tell builders or, you know, developers and stuff, hey, the fire code changed and you need sprinklers in the house now, or whatever. So I'd like to know why we can't do that, other than it's uncomfortable and it's a pain in the butt, and, you know, he's gonna charge us 100 hours of legal fees to do it, but, you know, I think it's the right thing to do, and that puts the entire city on the same sheet of music. Just my 2 cents.
It's a fair question to ask, and I will ask him, but I also want to give you one really good example why I think it should apply to some current development, and that is the Perkle Farm property. I mean, and without getting into a whole long thing about it, it's not going to be built the way it got zoned. It's zoned for 500 units, almost 200 townhouses and 300 single-family homes, and the rest is industrial. And that property was bought by Uline. Well, they want to build warehouse, period. They don't want to build any residential, and so we're sitting there having to plan for 500 units that we know are not going to happen, but we can't take them off the books because the zoning, I mean, you know, Uline could go back and sell it today, and then somebody's in here trying to get a plat for the ones that were built. So we have much good interest in trying to reverse things that we know are not going to happen, or like you said, are those that have been where if it wasn't a speculative ordeal, then things would have been happening.
Because, once again, my experience and wisdom and knowledge with developers that do this kind of stuff, usually they try to find a piece of property, then they go out and try to find $50 million, and then they come to the city and ask for rezoning and such. So would it be possible with a statement that says rezonings become effective on the date that all tap fees, building permits, impact fees, and any other such development fees are paid according to the schedule?
No, I think that's going way too far.
In other words, once you rezone it, it's done, or not. Either you do it or you don't.
Yeah, the bottom line with all of this is that the clock or some action on the part of an applicant cannot change the zoning itself. Only the zoning can only be changed by legislative act of the city council. And so you can't just say, well, if this condition's not met, your zoning doesn't go into effect. But I got the basic idea of what you're talking about, for sure. So your choice then, I guess, is, would you like me to study this, write it up, and bring it back to you? Or go ahead and move ahead with it with the parameters that you've given me and bring it back up so the council can talk about it in September?
Is there anything that prevents us, this may be a question for you, Jennifer, is there anything that prevents you from sending whatever you draft up to us electronically?
Oh, not at all.
And then
No,
we
can
can
do that.
review it, and then, you know, we can say, oh, yeah, this is comfortable, or that way, in case anybody not that I would expect anything, because I know you do
Well,
great
there-
work, Jerry. I appreciate everything
No,
you do.
there might be, and I don't want to shortchange you, but that is an idea, is we write it, we plan to go to the city council with it September, and then you get a copy as soon as it's ready, and then if you guys, anybody has comments, or even you can participate at that time when it's up for a work session.
That's fine. Seems like a kind of sounds like we're all on the same page, kind of slowing down step or an unnecessary step, but if that's what it's got to be.
Yeah.
Because we could always have a called meeting. If we felt like it was something we need to sit down in the same room and talk about.
I think we just send it out to all of us and we all review it. If we feel we need to get together after that, then
Yeah.
we could, but probably in a group email, any comments just gets to everybody, and could always get each other on the phone or do a Zoom call.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
Okay. I think we have consensus on that, Madam Chair. If that's all right with you, then that's what we'll
Do you
do.
need a motion on that or anything, or just
I
do it?
think we're
Yeah.
okay.
I have one question.
Okay.
So if it turns out that someone does not do something within the time frame, then city council says, no, we're going to revert back. Is there any other consequence to the developer?
Well, there could
the
could be.
applicant.
I mean, and that's what
Right.
gets weighed out in the process of deciding whether, the first thing is you
Exactly.
decide, the way I wrote it is, you let the person know that you've reached your limit and we're going to put it on the agenda to consider reverting your zoning back, going through the process. And then they would have the right to object at that point, and they could say, look, you didn't consider all these 4 or 5 things that I've done, don't try and do this. The council could say, okay, fine, we're all right.
I agree with that, but then at the end of it, if nothing has been done and they've more or less forgotten about the property and all that is, the process has been completed.
Yeah.
Is there a consequence other than, okay, we're gonna revert?
Well, I mean, the
Whatever.
consequences are big. It's the property rights of
It
the
is.
owner,
Okay,
and those are going away. They're reverting back to
yes,
something. So that definitely has consequences.
yes, it does. I just wanted to throw that out.
So based on that, I don't recall reading that once the first 2-year period went by and they come to you and say, hey, I've done these 5 things, don't revert it back. Does that start the clock back for 24 months, or do they have 12 months to hit, or are we gonna write in a schedule? We're gonna write in a schedule. Never mind.
Okay, I think you're right.
I'm sorry.
I just have a general question based on the comment about consequence, and I just don't know, Jerry, so please educate me. When a developer comes in and proposes a project and it gets approved, do they put any money in escrow, in case something goes south or anything like that?
No, they have other than the money associated with making the application and the site plan, that's all they have invested in.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe earnest money in purchasing the property and stuff like that. Okay, so we got a game plan for that one then. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you very much.
I think that completes our old business. So we will open up our public meeting on item ordinance TA 2405. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. White for reading the agenda in full and his report.
Yeah, Planning Commissioners, this is ordinance TA 2405 by SEK Houston LLC by Tommy Saul applicant. We filed an application to amend the text of the zoning ordinance, the C2 zoning district. It's a simple change to change auto parts store and tire store from a prohibited use to a permitted use in the C2 zoning district. And my recommendation is to approve it, but with a little bit of background. When we wrote the zoning ordinance in 2016 and when it was adopted before 2016, the zoning ordinance was very restrictive on State Route 53. There was clearly a concern that we do not want Houston to look like, from start to finish, auto body shop, used car lots, quick lube places, et cetera, et cetera. And the city, the way the zoning is, it's very, very, very restrictive with regard to auto-related uses, even to the point of, like convenience stores with gas pumps are not even allowed in the properties, in the corridor for 53, where most of it is C2, and then we have a separate zoning district called C3, I think it's auto services oriented district, and that's not zoned outright anywhere in the city and has to be done by application. So I think that was there was a lot of foresight in doing that, but on the other hand, it was a little bit too restrictive in terms of, like, for example, convenience stores with gas pumps. The city turned down one twice in the center of town at Town Center Parkway and State Route 53, but then we have approved, on the other hand, they approved a car wash on the north side of town, and then we approved an amendment to the Twin Lakes zoning to allow a convenience store on the south end of town. And so we are gonna get, I don't know about the car wash, but the convenience store, there's development plans filed for that. So we're gonna get, and is that okay? I mean, we have a couple of gas stations in the city, and the tire store is kind of another one like that. It doesn't, or auto parts, you don't really know, that's not lending itself to auto service and so forth. I mean, it's all retail trade enclosed, and so all of the whatever you're buying, tires, parts, well, I say that and then I start thinking about it, tire display might be something that we have to deal with a little bit better, but, anyway, the idea is that, it's a enclosed retail use and that it should be okay. The Kroger group wants to, that same corner that we denied a convenience store, they've got someone interested in that for a tire store. And so, with that said, my recommendation is approval, but the applicant is here. Tommy Saul is in the audience, and we'd like to recognize him to see if he has any comments to say, and then we'll open this up for for the rest of the public hearing.
Good evening, Thomas Dahl with Southeastern Development out of Augusta, Georgia. We're the developers of the Kroger Shopping Center just up the road off of Highway 53. And we're really asking just for the text amendment for the zoning to allow for businesses such as an AutoZone, Advanced Auto. We're not looking for auto servicing, such as a Firestone, the Jiffy Lube. And it kind of opens up the avenue for more businesses to come in, such as an Advanced Auto. And when you look at it, the Lowe's, the Home Depots, even Kroger, even Publix sell auto parts, even Ace Hardware. So I know they're not an auto store, but they're selling those parts as they are. And we're just asking for a simple change to the text amendment. And as Jerry mentioned, that would be fine if you put some limitations on certain parts and certain uses. But that's what we're asking for. Thank you.
I want to clarify, is it a tire changing place or is it an auto parts store and a tire changing?
Auto parts store and tire sales, but not servicing. No service, so you can buy a tire there, you may be able to buy a tire there, but you cannot.
It won't be put on there.
Will not be put on there, correct.
So, if I may, Jerry, I have a couple questions. As I drive past the Kroger site now, and I see those two huge piles of tires that were uncovered, and to further expand on hazardous waste, specifically car batteries and tires, how do we address that within the city? Because I'd like to see some type of plan that says, hey, we won't hold used tires here, or we do, they get shipped out every 2 weeks. We're not going to hold batteries here, because all that, I'm just concerned about hazardous materials and gathering, and then tires, even if they're behind a shop, become an eyesore. And I want to avoid that. And those are the two items that come to mind specifically, are batteries and tires.
And that's a good point. We had to deal with all of that, and it was extensive. Because that was more of a garage and automobile service thing, but, at times people do come to, when they buy a battery for the car, they exchange it, leave it with the business that they're buying it from. Those businesses have pretty strict regulations where they have to dispose of those batteries properly. They cannot store them. I'd have to find out for you. I'm not sure what the regulations are, but they cannot just keep them on site or put them out back and bury them.
No.
These will be out parcels that have individual business on it, and so there's really no place to hide any type of hazardous materials. They'll have to dispose of them properly.
So I'm gonna assume, and I know it's dangerous when you assume, but the city has nothing that addresses hazardous material storage, and it probably falls on the county or the state. I don't know what the store.
And if I may.
Yes, sir, please.
We will actually have those type of regulations in our restricted easement agreements that will be provided to the city as well. That Kroger has to have pretty strict restrictions on the property for all the businesses that go around. They'll control what comes in there. That's a good point. Throughout the city, do you have that language? But within our development, they have to meet certain standards, cannot have hazardous materials stored on site.
And I'd just like to take this opportunity too, for the developer out there at Kroger's. I think you guys are doing a great job. I have not seen anything that I wouldn't be proud to say, here's what's happening. And so kudos for how that's happening out there.
Thank you very much. We'll let our crew know that. That's good to hear.
How many people buy tires and just walk away with them? I mean, generally, when you buy a tire, you want to put on the car.
You do. I agree. So I don't see a whole lot of tire sales businesses. But some of these stores, that sell predominantly mostly the parts, not so many tires, they'll still carry some tires and they'll sell them. Somebody might want to buy a spare. Or they'll buy them there for a better price, take them to their mechanic down the road and have them put them on. So I don't see a whole lot of that, but there is some.
Tommy, if I can ask a question, are you entertaining the idea of having somebody like a Mavis Tire come in and on that corner? Or is it
Maybe
mainly?
it's services, they do a lot of servicing. If they came in and did not service, we could allow it, but the servicing, we're not asking for. That remains on C3 zone. We're only zone C2 throughout the entire development.
Yeah. Because I think they're making a good point about how many people, I mean, you made an argument that, yeah, you can buy a tire and put it on somewhere else, you buy it wholesale, whatever. But I'm starting to think that auto parts is benign and tire store is not very benign if it's gonna have, if you're selling tires, you're gonna repair tires, you're gonna store tires, you're gonna display tires, you're gonna have, overhead doors that are probably going to face the highway, and then we're getting something exactly of what we were trying not to. So I realize I'm backpedaling a little bit here, but I'm starting to think that the tire store is more problematic than auto parts.
We like a good blend of different businesses. We have a pretty large piece of property with a number of out parcels for individual businesses. And if you have only restaurants, your traffic's gonna get pretty bad, parking gets really bad. So we like to see restaurants, we like to see some retail shops, we like to see some automotive parts sales shops. And so a nice blend in there attracts more customers and different customers, Kroger likes that as well.
Yeah, that brings up my question is, would you park it right there on 53, or would you take it around the corner, where it's more behind other things?
If we're allowed to do auto parts sales, it would be along 53. And if you see some of those that are only auto parts stores, they do a nice building. Because they
If it's just auto parts, right?
Yeah, it's more of a brick building, glass front, and no garage doors. So it'll look like any other business you're gonna see along 53 with the zoning requirements, setbacks, parking.
Any more?
Go ahead.
So, here's my concern. I was more in line with the Mavis Tire Store than I was the car parts store. Because the average age of a car today, according to the people that keep up with all this stuff, is now 14 years of age. And my concern is the car makes it to the parts store, because a lot of these parts stores now loan you the tools to put your part on or whatever, but it dies in the parking lot. Now we've got a car sitting in the parking lot for however long. And trust me, when I was a teenage kid, my car would die in the middle of the road sometimes. So I have sympathy for those people. My concern is that we already have in some big grocery store parking lots, people that park and stay in the car overnight. I'm just wondering if we end up with a parts store and there's 3 or 4 cars parked overnight for 2 or 3 nights, does that attract a person that might be looking to park their car and spend the night? I've seen it. My brother builds advanced auto parts, so
Well, as the owners of the shopping center, we'll have maintenance crews, and Kroger's gonna review it regularly. We don't allow overnight parking. We run into that too. You'll see certain shopping centers that are older and not as visited as some newer shopping centers. You'll see big rig trucks that park there overnight, a large number of them. And that's because they're not new and they're not as busy and they're not as policed as ours are. And so Kroger will demand it of the owners, and the shop owner, whether it's a Mavis, whether it's a Maxwell, they're gonna demand that as well. They usually have signs up that say no overnight parking, you'll be towed if your car's left here.
So Southeast Development owns that whole piece of property, correct?
Yes, sir.
How often does Southeastern Property Development, sell their properties to other investors? Like, is it 10 years, 15
We're
years?
typically long-term holders, and we have investors and partners.
Right.
I won't go into all the details, but if our investors just have to sell it, we'll consider it, but we're typically long-term holders. We're not, we don't build and sell. We're not looking for that.
Do you
We like
consider
to build
long-term
it.
10 years?
It could be 10, because we have some that we've held for 30 years. Now, there are some that if somebody just has to have it worse than we do and makes a ridiculous offer, we'll look at it, because we have to answer to our investors as well, but we ultimately make the decision. We typically hold long-term.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot, and you may not be able to tell us.
I'm on the spot.
But, some of the previous surveys that have gone around within the city, one of the things that the city does not have are any health services. Are you actively recruiting any of those physical therapies, quick health clinics, anything like that? And if you can't say, I understand that, because I know negotiations are sensitive. And the reason I ask that, because I was going to Benchmark in West Jackson for almost a year, and they were interested, but I don't know if they've approached you or not.
Have not heard that they've approached us, but yes, we have quite a bit of land there, and we'd love to bring some of the healthcare services, whether it's orthopedic, whether it's emergency care, whether it's the doc in the box, whatever it may be, we'd love to have some. We do have room for that. We are in talks and discussions with a few. And so I'll give you kind of quickly what we're looking at. We're in early stages of marketing. We're talking to as many potential tenants as we can. We have restaurants, we want retail, maybe some clothing stores, we want some hard goods stores, maybe we want healthcare there. We think there's a big need with the growth here. And so we're very actively pursuing all of the above. We haven't signed leases yet because we are early, and we're still in the design phase, meeting with Jerry regularly on that. And so, yes, any tenants you hear that want to be here, feel free to pick up. I'll give you my cell phone. Let me know. We talk to anybody and everybody, and we listen to. We had the survey. The mayor provided that. We looked at it closely. We pay attention to what the citizens want. Let us know. We'll reach out and talk to whoever you hear may want to be here, because we want to talk to them as well. Bring them to our shopping center. Yeah.
Thanks. And again, I do want to commend you and your organization for being part of the community.
It's a good one. It's growing fast, so we know growing pains, but that's a lot of times a good problem as long as it's done properly. So any other questions?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, thank you guys very much.
I know we went a little bit over, but can we see if there's anybody else that wants to talk in favor? Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor of the applicant? Anyone who wants to speak in opposition? Gina?
Not really, I don't know if it's opposition, but I just wanted to add to the concerns. I know that, Job Hunter Car Parts Store parking lots, people actively work on their cars, there's oil drip, it gets kind of grody. So that's a concern. Suggestion, strike tire out of it, auto parts store. If it includes the retail sale of a tire, isn't that an auto part? But I think leaving tire in there lends itself to sounding more like a service area. And can you specifically, and it may be there, I don't know, specifically say no services? If you're gonna change it and make it acceptable, just simply auto parts store, no mention of tires, and then specifically strike out or state that services cannot be provided at that whole location. That's all. Thank you for letting me speak.
Welcome. Anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition?
Speaking for majority of, the public,
And just for the, record, will you repeat your name and address, please?
yes, my name is Rachel Allred. I am, off of McNeil Road, District 5. Speaking as a citizen, I don't need, I don't even have a car, 'cause it's car insurance, but I definitely don't, like, I only got, like, we don't need another AutoZone. We need to go into an AutoZone that's already there and be like, Mr. Joe Bob, you're our guy. And everyone knows Joe. You know what I mean? Like, everyone knows Joe, everyone gets their car from Joe. Joe's our guy in Hush. So we don't need, like, another part. We don't need more people. We need to go in there and be like, you're our guy. I'll clean up all the shutters around here and we'll get your business popping. It'll be good. You know? So it kind of incorporates all the things. It's all connected, you know? I don't need another auto part. I need, like, to go get my vegetables and fruit, my water, and clothing. And that's where I'm at with it, is really basic stuff. Even health services, that's great. Health services are great. But then that comes into the whole thing of, what do I got for health insurance? I just go to a quick little CVS, I can't even get whatever Medicaid, Medicare, whatever's out there, So I'm a really, need a basic person, and, we don't need another auto parts. I got Joe. Joe's great. But Joe needs to get a knee fix so that Joe can get his business up and running. That's just where I'm at with it. And thank you so much again, and thank you for the hard work that you do, so, thank you.
Rachel. Yes, ma'am. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Okay. Seeing that there's none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Is there a motion to?
I have one question. Is this a general change in the C2 zone?
Yes.
I'm going with auto parts store only then.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Because as soon as I say tire store, I think the same thing. I gotta put them on the car. And if they're gonna put the tires on, then they're gonna do the alignments, and they're gonna do the brakes, and it's gonna be a Kaufman tire or a Tire Plus or something like that. And that's not what we want. We want an AutoZone or,
They could sell golf cart tires.
pardon me?
Golf cart tires.
Well, it's funny you say that, because the thought just came to mind. And I want to make sure we don't cripple anybody that's in the city already. But will this impact the golf cart business? Because they do maintenance and they do tire repairs right there next to Juke and Jive. So I want to make sure we don't impact them by accident.
What are they zoned?
C2, I believe.
Yeah, it was gonna be sales.
Yeah, but I think they're servicing and those kind of things, so.
Yeah.
I'm all about protecting the small business. That's why I want to make sure that we don't screw them over accidentally.
Look into that and
Yeah.
see what we can accommodate.
Well, if it's the universal,
Well, they're already, if they're servicing, they're already not in compliance.
yes,
So this won't change it.
yeah.
And all we're doing is adding a type of business, AutoZone. Auto parts store, excuse me.
So what I hear your motion, if I can be so bold as to suggest it,
Sure do it, Dr. White.
that for auto parts, you're gonna say auto parts with no services is a permitted use in the C2. Tire store goes on its own line and stays as a prohibited use.
Correct, yes, sir.
If
That's my motion. I thought of that so good.
Do you have a,
Are we also saying no golf cart tires?
I'm staying out of that one. Ace dug that hole.
I'm all about protecting the small businesses in our community, that's all. I don't want to.
We'll second the motion.
A motion with those conditions.
do you have a second, you're seconding?
Yes,
Chuck seconded.
doesn't matter.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, that's done with that one then.
Okay, the next item is the discussion item for the plan map, Jerry.
Yeah, the future land use plan map is back on the agenda, and you may remember that this already came up maybe 3 months ago now. I think it was June, or, and everyone was okay with the general idea that we were gonna update the plan to reflect the zonings that were made and so forth, bring up the base map and everything, but I just wasn't comfortable trying to do it without having, all of the GIS work done, because there was it was like 2.5 years of base map updates with, not even half of Twin Lakes was showing up on the city's map, and now you can see from your version, and I've got a larger one here, that we've got, they've already platted most of Twin Lakes there, and it's a totally different view of the city from what it was 2.5 years ago. And so I wanted to get it to the point where we could see it and study it a little bit more before we sent it on to, it's an amendment, so it has to go to the Regional Commission and review by the State Department of Community Affairs to make sure that it meets standards. And so, I didn't want to go through that until we were sure exactly what we had. So here it is, and what I'd like to do is maybe get consent to go ahead with it, even though you've already said conceptually now, that you're okay with it. At least now you can see everything that we propose to change, and we can discuss any and all changes, and then have your blessing to go ahead with it to the City Council in September, and have them basically say, okay, also to authorize it to be in the review process, and then we won't bring it back for adoption until we've done the review through the region and state. And so that would occur probably October, November, something like that, yeah.
So this, I want to make sure I understand, this is what we're going to submit, is that the intent for the state? And the only reason I ask, because I believe that, Chris went to Twin Lakes, for example, Geneva Way has now been fully developed, and it actually extends into that orange area, and it's already mapped out on the Kroger's plan. I didn't know if we wanted to capture that.
Oh, yeah, well, it was as far up to date. We may still not, they may have not, you say they've got it mapped, well, maybe they do, and I don't know why it didn't appear on this, but it might have been something that they just added. This map's not more than a month old, so it should, I thought it was pretty up to date with all of the platted.
But I don't see any surprises in this. This is all what's always been outlined, as I understand it.
Yeah, it's in here. Yeah, the full plan of course, Twin Lakes is in, was supposed to follow that,
Yeah, I just saw a map, though, that had that Geneva Way all the way to the back of, to that property down to
To the river?
past the substation.
Yeah, it's on the other side of it.
It's on the other side of that electrical substation now.
I think that was the final plat that we just approved in the last month or two, but I don't know how that already would have gotten mapped, but it's possible. So bottom line is, are we good to proceed? Do you need to discuss anything? Do you want to make changes? Or can we go ahead and proceed, and then it will come up for adoption, but it wouldn't come back up to the planning commission. It would go, for adoption, it'd go just to the city council. Okay.
So what do you need?
I think just consent to proceed, that you don't have any recommended changes, and there's no disagreement with pushing it ahead to the council and on for review.
So I have just one question.
Okay.
If it's on this paper as a PUD, does that mean it's already been approved as a PUD? Or does
Yeah.
that mean a developer could come in and say, hey, this extra 50 acres here is a PUD on your future land use map?
No, there are no there are no advanced PUD designations in this plan. The only way a PUD appears is if it's already been zoned.
So that property across from West Jefferson Elementary School is in 100% PUD already.
Across there, well, no, it's not, actually, that's not showing PUD any longer. It's showing, residential moderate density. You're talking
Okay.
about the cell track
Right.
up there across from the school. Yeah, right. He's talking about this piece here, the Aberdeen PUD, and then not all of that, this part right now is still agricultural. But
Mhm.
it's shown in here as medium density, so it's not, we were getting, basically what we've done is we've gotten rid of the prior general PUD designation, and we called that medium moderate density residential.
Okay.
So that lower half of the Aberdeen PUD is still agricultural? Is that what I heard you
The
say?
zoning is,
So, and that's fine. I guess having been to previous meetings with developers, especially that one, I wouldn't want the developer to come back and say, oh, that's, we assumed that was already PUD since it's on this map. The same thing they try to do with the public road and that kind of stuff. They make assumptions based on discussions, and I just don't want that to be reflected as a PUD if it's not a PUD.
well, actually, yeah, you're on to something here. I need to make another revision to it because it shows PUD has got a light yellow, see the future land use category?
Mhm.
And that's not right. There is no longer a PUD category intended here. It's all either, if it's residential, it's one of those, three, residential categories. It's either low density, moderate density, or multifamily. Okay, so I want to get rid of that, the one that says PUD, because it's no longer relevant, and then I've got to also take it out of the text too, because that's what the state folks will write me up for not being consistent. So I got to go back and do that too.
Well, it's just in the legend, though. There's nothing,
Yeah, it's
there's
only in
nothing
the
on the
legend,
map-
it's not
nothing
showing
map
up on the
anywhere.
map, that's right.
Okay.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this, or is there consensus to proceed with it? Okay. Yes. Check. Text. Okay, then, we're on the last item then, Madam Chair, right? Okay, I put this on the agenda because we've received some recent information. There's been, I call it the $1 million study, because the consultants got $1 million out of GDOT to do this study. And, it's a mobility study for Highway 53 and Highway, 211 and 60, basically the Brazelton-Houston area. And I wrote this up as if I was gonna present it, but then I wrote a memo, and that's all I really want to do is share that memo with you, and then maybe discuss a few things about it. But basically, they looked at a lot of different alternatives to get relief for traffic congestion in the 53 corridor, and they arrived at two sets of recommendations, and two maps are in this memo on the second page and on the third page. And basically what they said was, we're going to improve State Route 211, which is not in the city. We're going to improve that to 4 lanes, and when it connects to 124, we're going to 4-lane Highway 124 all the way from 211 over to where Highway 60 comes in, and all the way over to 124, State Route 124 at that intersection with 332. That's one big thing that they were going to do. The other was look at page 2 and the map, and they've got a dotted green line, that's what they're calling the Highway 60, State Route 60 extension. And that would go all the way from 124, there would be an interchange. The county has planned for an interchange at Highway 60 since 2008. Okay, to give you an idea how long some of this stuff takes. And so there'd be an interchange there. They would 4-lane that road. They'd take Maddox Road. You know, most everybody knows where Maddox Road is. That would become, in essence, a 2-lane road down to, an improved 2-lane road down to 332. Then they would cross 332 and come over, you'd cross over to Jackson Trail Road. This would come in Jackson Trail right about where the city limits ends on Jackson Trail Road. And that's all the way to 53, excuse me. So it would go, it would not cross Jackson Trail, it would join Jackson Trail. And then there'd be some other road improvements. The rest of it is what they call local operational improvements, and most of that, if you've looked at this, is traffic signals. There is one right turn lane at Jackson Trail that they would say that we put in that would help the traffic some. There's one thing in here that I think is not very realistic, and that is they recommended that the intersection of Town Center Parkway at 53 become one straight movement where Industrial Avenue is. And you know, if you, everybody knows where that is, like Town Center is here and Industrial is here, there's a jog in between them. And they're suggesting that we reroute, for whatever reason, that we reroute Town Center. And Tommy already left, or he would have, I kind of wish he had stayed, because I wanted to tell him about this. I don't think that's realistic, and it doesn't mean anything to us. I mean, this is just a study. It's not a plan, and so we're not adopting it. And I don't think that that's realistic at all, because you've got Southeastern marketing that site right now,
Yeah.
and to do that differently, they'd probably lose that whole development site. And then on the other side, the Kumar Plan Unit Development has got an idea for that to be commercial there, and I don't see, industrial is a very low volume right now, and I don't see why that necessarily needs to connect. I know they don't call for a street light there at that, and maybe that's why they were thinking that they should be connected, they should be lined up, but anyway, I don't think that that's realistic at all. And so, but everything else has to do mostly with traffic signals and the rerouting of 332, just like it used to be, the Town Center Parkway was always thought of as ultimately a state route. And so what they're suggesting is that 332 be rerouted, not closed, but rerouted to Town Center Parkway. So that's what I've got for you, to save you if you hadn't read all 394 pages or 125 pages of text, that's what it says, basically.
So Jerry, I have read it. And I have a couple of questions.
Why am I not surprised, Scott?
Yes, it should not surprise you. On page 22, under the baseline conditions that these people were given, the city of Houston gave them that Twin Lakes was only going to have 60 units in it. Mm-hmm. There's no mention of Crestwinds having any units.
Yeah.
And there's no mention of Kumar's property having 250 apartments. So the reason that concerns me is because then when I go back here and look at when all of the intersections are become E's and F's, if their baseline conditions were wrong, it's kind of like AI is only as good as the A that goes into it.
Yeah, you're right. I noticed that they, and you'd think for $1 million that they'd be able to get most of their facts right, but a lot of the facts are not right. And I think I found some of the same things where they're, you know, they assumed like the annual traffic growth rate was gonna be 1.57%. And, we're gonna be facing 5 and 10%
Yes.
increases in traffic in a matter of a few years. So I know that that's not right either.
No.
But the question would be whether, I mean, now that they're done with it, I mean, do we tell them, hey, your study sucks and we don't,
I might wordsmith that.
On the positive side, I was just pointing out, because they're only as good as the data they were given, right? I mean, that's.
yeah.
So, but the positive side is, at least now our city council has hard numbers and what's being recommended by GDOT to say, if you want to put those 350 houses on East Jefferson, then there's a $361,000 red light that has to go in. So I'm good for that.
Mhm.
The one thing that, is a little bit troubling is the turning of Peachtree Road into a 4-lane extension of Highway 60 on page
Peachtree.
41.
But that,
Yeah.
that worried me too, but that was an alternative that they did not select.
That's right.
You're
Okay.
talking about
Yeah.
alternative 3.
Well-
And I was gonna mention that. One of the things they considered, after never identifying Peachtree Road as even anything other than a local road, it's never even been a collector road in the state's functional classification. And then they decided, oh, well, what if we make, instead of improving 211, that we send all that traffic on Covered Bridge Road across the river to Peachtree Road, and then join it over to go through the city all the way to Jackson Trail Road, that was gonna become, in effect, that would be Highway 60
Yeah.
through the city, a brand-new road improvement. And I saw that too, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. But then they didn't recommend that alternative. It was alternative 4, which did away with that.
My concern is, if they had the real baseline data, would that change? Because when we moved up here 34 years ago, and Mr. Scott Hudgens owned all of that property, our discussions were that he was going to bisect that property somewhere down around where Cole's house is now, maybe a little closer this way, and put a 4-lane in there to connect 53 and 211. And based on some of his prior developments, we felt like that was gonna be a thing. So I'm just wondering if, with the new data, that there's 3,000 homes in Crest Winds and Twin Lakes, 1,100 more down there on the Rockland property, could that become a realistic deal? Because, I mean, you're talking about just the Rockland Homes property creating 10,000, 12,000 vehicle trips a day.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying one way or the other, I'm just saying it's in somebody's binoculars now and they're looking at it, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I share the concern that, I mean, it's in a study now, it's not recommended, but what might
happens?
change?
Yeah.
And, I mean, could that be something that they then come back with later? And I don't know if, I know that their numbers are wrong, how much it would affect the model and stuff
Yeah.
like that, it's hard to say. It seems like it might be significant, and that it could change recommendations if they had better data to start with, but they didn't. So it's a study, it's out there, it should inform our own transportation planning process, and it should be we think it will influence the state too in terms of what their expenditures are.
Hey, Jerry, I didn't read the report, so I'm asking, do you know if this study takes into account the 100-some acres that the Jackson County School bought for future development on 332? Because that's a lot of traffic. I mean, and that's probably 10 years down the road, but that's, I could see that
No,
being
see, they did a study differently from what I think they, probably could have done. I think that one of the saving graces we have is that the county's gonna do an update to their transportation plan, and we need to watch what they're doing. And they will do it a little more, I think, than, well, let me back up and say, there was discussion in there about traffic analysis zones and the data that was already in there. And I'm afraid that that data was probably not up to date with regard to the school. I can't be certain, but I don't think that they considered that. And then, they were relying mainly on just increasing the traffic in the area by 1.57% and not looking at really, physically on the ground how these housing units were gonna generate traffic and which way it would go and stuff like that. I think the county and the city plans will do a little bit better job at that than what they did.
On September
With less
10th,
money.
The traffic engineer, I think the traffic engineer,
Yeah.
that's working with the county will be here in this building,
When is that?
September the 10th.
Okay.
The one thing that I saw that I thought was missing is they put a traffic light at Peachtree and 53, but no left turn lane. They need that left turn lane.
Yeah, well, the, good thing about that intersection, and Tommy's gone again, but they're paying for
Yes.
all of the improvement for that entire intersection. We're gonna get the lanes that we need and everything,
Yeah, good.
traffic signal, et cetera.
All right.
So do we need to do anything on that?
No, we really don't. It's just information, and, we'll, down the road, pretty soon, we'll start our 5-year update that's due almost a year from now. And, maybe the next time we get together, we'll talk about that, because, we need to, this was one thing about long-range planning that you as a planning commission should know about since it was out there, so I just wanted to get it out there to talk, and then I'm gonna do the same with the city council to let them know what it says. And then we'll do our own planning and decide whether we want to incorporate this or whether we don't. Okay.
Can I ask a rookie question?
Sure.
On this traffic plan, obviously $1 million plus study with some bad data, is it out of the question to just improve the data, give them the latest, not throw the whole plan out, but how does going from 1.5% increase to 5 change that particular,
Yeah.
is that out of the question, or is that?
My sense is that it probably is, because this was a May draft report, and I got told that it was available, and then as soon as I got told, remember, you got another email, and then the county came in and said, oh, they've made revisions to it, and now there's a final report. And so I think given that they've already spent the money, the likelihood of anybody going back and telling them to improve the study is probably not very likely. But then we'll use it for what it's worth, and we'll have a county transportation plan, a 5-year update, and then the city's getting money to do its own transportation plan from the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So we'll make good on all through those two processes. I hope we'll make good on the errors and deficiencies that we have with this study, and we'll do it with less cost too.
Awesome, Jerry, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. And then we'll note for the record that we want to get the zoning ordinance out to you. We may give you that one without the update, like the PUD. The PUD did get approved, the changes to that. And so it may not reflect that. If we just print what we have now, there may be a couple that are missing, but we'll let you know what those are.
All right.
All right, if there's no other business scheduled, does anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss?
I would just like to thank Jerry for all your hard work, and you've made us smart, and I appreciate you going above and beyond. Thank you very much for that,
Thank
Jerry.
you. Did you have any other discussion items under other business? No?
No.
Okay.
None heard, so we're adjourned.
I think we can adjourn. All right,
Need a
we'll see you
motion to
guys-
adjourn? Just do it?
No, we'll just do it. See you guys next month.
My wife just sent me a note, you got beer.
Oh, party at Ace's house. Yeah.
You know, I get in here and then I figure out
Ooh, there you go.
why that's working that way, but.
I'm sure.